So, I wrote this script originally to talk about how much I love Starfinder, a game about space, magic, adventure, and such. But I realized the script was longer than my Mutants and Masterminds story I did just a week or two ago. So I'm breaking into multiple videos instead. Let's get started with the basic description of this game. Starfinder is Pathfinder 1.5, but in the far distant future. The world of Galorion has advanced to near space travel, traveling within their star system, colonizing and advancing each world. At some point, things went completely forgotten. Everyone in the galaxy and beyond just woke up one day and couldn't remember the previous few hundred years. And if you were married, you knew you cared about the person, but you can't remember why. Oh, and the entire planet of Galorion was just gone. Good amount of time passed after this, nobody lost their skills, so things went on. People just need to figure out how they got these skills and relations with others. Shorter-lived races went on, but older ones went into depression, locked themselves on their own planet, and put up a sign that said, "No, not elves allowed." But then another god no one knew of said, "Hey, you want to travel across the galaxy? Use these plans to make an engine that lets you enter my dimension. Experiment with this and make it better." That led further travels, new aliens being met, new aliens getting scared and fighting, some lizards getting pissed at everyone and trying to make them family by force. Those lizards try to make the Pact Worlds, the Galorion system, part of their family, but some bugs come around, warn the two teams of other bugs, and all three of them work together to kill the hungry bugs. Is any of this making sense? Because I'm realizing as I'm saying it, no. Nothing makes sense, and I still got what looks like 2 more paragraphs here. So let's just skip over that. Holy shit. So, yeah, that's the real rundown of the lore with that. The year is 323. After the gap, which is the event where everyone forgot and Galorion just went away. It takes a lot of Pathfinder First Edition. Makes it a little easier. And it's really all in all just an in-between of the 2 Pathfinders, you know? When it comes to mechanics, at least. There are, I believe, 7 races in the core rulebook, from humans to my favorite, the bug-like Shirin, to the lizard-like Vesk, to Isoki. You see that? That's a rat. Then there are the legacy races, which are, your elves, your half-orcs, your halflings, your dwarves, yada yada blah blah, and then we got all the other ones. There's a lot of races in this game. And in the latest books, I believe it is called Interstellar Species, there's a chapter on how to make your own race too. So this game is a very, very options-heavy game. I'm not going to go into everything because this is already going to be a bit of a video. Next up, we got classes. Recently, a channel, NoNat1s, did a video about this game saying there were 12, but by my count there's 13. But he also named all of them, so I don't know. I'm gonna go over each one with a quick 1-sentence, quote-unquote, rundown of them. First up, the Biohacker, Doc Buffer and Debuffer. Then the Envoy, words are the biggest weapon. Evolutionist, adapt and survive. Mechanic, Dr. Robotnik. Mystic, sci-fi cleric. Nanocyte, we are legion, for we are many. Operative, rogue in space. Precog, magic time, or time magic. Solarian, I am the light and the dark. Soldier, Doomguy and Rex Power Cold had a baby. Technomancer, nerd. Vanguard, Chuck Norris. That's legitimately just Chuck Norris with armor. And Witch Warper, Another world in the palm of my hand. I feel like I'm probably forgetting something in that, but I keep going over it and it seems fine and dandy, really. How about weapons? Weapons are very important in most tabletop RPGs, right? Well, first off, you got the basic melee weapons, which involve clubs, knives, other knives, and various other things. Every class is capable of using them, so they aren't that useful, but they're good if you need to do an attack of opportunity or to use certain spells and abilities. Next tier of melee, advanced melee weapons, things like swords, knuckle duster, and the doshko, which is like a laser axe. A bunch of classes have use into these, though most won't prefer them except for in specific builds or cases. They're great for tanks and combat maneuvers, which are essentially just manipulating the field to give your allies advantages. Now we go on to the gun. First one is your basic small arm. Small arms are like your handguns and all that. They're like the basic melee weapons in that all classes can use them. Rather short range in comparison to most other firearms, but there's a wide variety of them, including, but not limited to, ice guns, guns with high range, guns that burn, and literal gravity guns. Then we got long arms, from your hunting rifles to your shotguns to your automatic rifles to laser beams. These things can be incredibly short range or have long range too. There are also some subclasses of the firearms there, but they can be used in some ranged combat maneuvers too. Like, for example, harrying fire or cover fire, though the small arms are going to be better for that. Then there's the sniper rifles. 2 classes get these at the start, arguably 3 if you want to count the precog, but that's a technicality with that class. They have the least number of options of any weapon in this game, but they are stupid powerful. Unfortunately, they have a negative in which they can only be shot once per round, but their damage usually makes more than up for it. Oh, then we got heavy weapons, which can range from light machine guns, auto turrets, cannons, and... oh, how do I describe this? The BFG 9000. And these don't even include special weapons, since there's multiple subtypes of them. Now, this game's got on-the-ground problems. Mostly the fact that there's so many books, you won't have all the information at any given time unless you have every adventure path and mainline book. Aeon SRD, which I'll link down below, makes it easier, but the website gets so much traffic now, it's kind of incredibly slow. Combat maneuvers are extremely necessary for the game, but most people kind of ignore them because they're just not going to be used a whole lot. They're not guaranteed anything because you have to hit KAC plus 8. Hell, a lot of people will actually forget, are they targeting kinetic AC, KAC, or energy AC, EAC, unless the ability specifically notifies it. For example, the Vanguard, I didn't realize that class actually hits energy armor class instead of kinetic, despite being a punch man. There's also the problem with the formatting in the books as well. They keep changing that up every single release, which makes it kind of confusing. Now they've got this new picture index, which I'm not really a fan of, and it seems like very few actually are. But that's just one thing. There's a whole lot wrong with the boots on the ground game. Most issues have to do with players or myself, the GM. I wish they'd release a rulebook with the rules condensed together. The number of options can also be intimidating for players who don't have an idea of what they're doing. So, let me give a suggestion for any starting out GM. If you know what you're doing, but your players don't, start with level 1 and run it with experience points. It's not like 3.5 experience points where they're absolutely necessary for crafting or certain spells, and it's not like 5th edition where you need a stupid amount of them in order to level up at all. It's really that nice in-between area between original Pathfinder and Pathfinder 2nd edition of leveling up. But for the boots, combat, and gameplay, honestly, I'll admit, this is one of my favorite TTRPGs. I'll give this game a 90%. And again, I say, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite. But we've still got actually more to talk about with this, so I'll be doing more videos about this in the future. Everywhere from magic, which is very different from Dungeons & Dragons, to starships, where there's a whole system in that, vehicles from, driving cars and all that, to, and hear me out, mech combat. You can play Gundam. You can make a whole campaign based around Pacific Rim. There's a whole planet where that's necessary, in fact. But next video I plan on talking about magic specifically. But until then, shove off.